Welcome to the 13th hour, where the veil grows thin and reality begins to bend.
On thin ice. It's supposed to be a simple day, just me and my son ice fishing on our small lake in Maine. The shanty is warm, the heater ticking, and we're laughing as we pack up our gear before heading home. Then, just as I reach for the last rod, a heavy, inhuman sound echoes across the ice, and everything changes. The first impact doesn't just hit the shanty, it detonates against it. A deafening, crushing crutch slams into the wooden wall with such force that the entire structure heaves an inch off the ice. The floor jumps beneath us like something alive. Every board groans under the sudden shock. The fishing rods bang violently against each other. Tiny flakes of sawdust drift down from the rafters like dust shaken from an old coffin lid. Jake, my 12-year-old son, jerks upright so violently he knocks his bait bucket across the floor, sending minnows and water skittering in every direction. Before he can even gasp, a second blow, angrier, heavier, hammers the opposite wall. This crash vibrates through the studs like the creature outside has leaned its entire monstrous weight against the shanty to test how easily it can crush it. Then the claws start. A slow, grinding gouge rips down the wooden boards like metal talons carving their way down the sides of the shanty. It isn't the quick skittering of an animal. It's steady and intentional. Each inch dragged out, as if the creature is savoring the resistance of the wood beneath its claws. The noise is so deep and resonant that the entire shanty becomes an amplifier. The vibrations travel through the walls until the sound settles behind my eyes in a sharp, pounding pressure. We hear them long before our minds can process what is happening to us. Crushing footsteps strike the ice. Each deliberate step sends a deep wave of fear washing over us and freezing us where we stand. Then, the realization that these footsteps are bipedal. Whatever animal this is walks upright, like humans. One of the creatures stops beside the wall in front of us, not near it, against it, so close its mass makes the wall studs groan under the strain of its body. Then, I notice something. In the far corner, along the lower part of the frame, one of the wall boards is pulled away from the studs by nearly half an inch. The screws there, old, rust-stained, and weakened by seasons of freeze and thaw, have begun to loosen. I take a single step toward it, intending to check the damage, but before I can move again, the gap darkens. Something enormous presses its face against the outside wall. The opening fills with blackness, and then, horrifically, black fur pushes through the split, coarse and bristling, forcing its way between the plank and the frame. A moment later, a section of its muzzle comes into view, a glimpse of rough fur, and then the unmistakable shape of a wet black nose inches from where Jake and I are standing. Jake's voice trembles. "Dad? The boards, they're strong enough, right?" I open my mouth to reassure him, because I have to. But something outside answers first. Not with words, no, nothing so human, but a low, rumbling sound rolls through the wall, layered and almost intentional, like a growl trying to imitate a voice, a sound that feels like it's aimed directly at us. Jake whimpers. My pulse slams in my ears. Another violent, explosive impact slams into the weakened side of the shanty. The entire structure jolts so hard that the metal screws screech in the wall and two pop out. We feel the shanty move an inch or two across the ice. This thing has slammed so hard into us, the bolts no longer hold the shanty in place. Jake gasps. I grab his shoulder. Jake asks again, "Dad, are you sure the boards will hold?" This time, I can't lie fast enough. "I don't know," I whisper. The creature inhales again, slow, deliberate. It's smelling us through the wood. It knows we're in here, and now it knows exactly where the shanty is weakest. The creature exhales once more, that slow, confident breath that vibrates through the studs and makes the tiny gap pulse like it's alive. Then, for a moment, everything falls into an unnatural silence. No footsteps, no breathing, Nothing but the faint tick of ice settling beneath us. That's when something thin and sharp begins to slide through the gap. At first, it looks like a sliver of metal being pushed through from the outside, but as more of it emerges, the shape curves, gleaming faintly in the lantern light. It's a claw attached to an impossibly long hand. The hand isn't completely human. It's covered in black fur, and its nails are hooked and razor sharp, with a wet sheen clinging to their edge. The hand moves with slow, deliberate intent, like whatever owns it is savoring every second of this first contact. Jake lets out a scream behind me. Then it pulls. The board shrieks as it's wrenched outward, the sound slicing through the shanty like a scream. Dust rains down from the rafters. The screws twist, grinding, resisting, but barely. Another sharp tug cracks the bottom half of the plank, bowing it outward. The claw retracts suddenly, slipping back through the gap with a wicked scrape. For a moment, we dare to breathe, until the claw returns, this time clicking against the wood like a finger tapping on a door. Tap, tap, tap. A mocking rhythm. Jake presses his face into my back, trembling. "Dad, why did it stop? Why is it doing that?" I don't answer, because I know the truth. Whatever's out there isn't just trying to get in, it's playing with us. The weakened wall groans again, the plank bowing inward as the creature outside presses its weight against it. The screws tremble, whining under the pressure. A dark shape shifts behind the gap, and I know, without seeing its face, that it's preparing to rip the board clean off. Jake is gripping the back of my coat so tightly his fingers shake. "Dad, what do we do?" he whispers. My mind races. We have nothing. No gun, no bat, no weapon except... My hand slams against my pocket. The knife. My fishing knife. It's old, but the blade is sharp enough to gut a perch in seconds. Sharp enough, I pray, to hurt whatever is trying to tear its way inside. I flip it open with shaking hands just as the claw returns through the gap, hooking deeper this time, curling inward like a black, wicked scythe. It grabs the inside edge of the plank again and begins to pry, the wood shrieking under the strain. I don't think, I act. I lunge forward and drive the knife hard into the creature's exposed claw, burying the blade to the hilt. For a split second, there is silence. Then the creature screams. The scream is so violent, so raw and guttural that it rattles the shanty from floor to rafters. The sound is a blend of agony and rage, something primal and intelligent enough to understand pain and furious enough to seek revenge. The claw retracts instantly, leaving a smear of something dark and wet on the board. Jake covers his ears and screams, "Dad, what did you do?" "I made it mad," I gasped. I made it really mad. A thunderous impact slams into the shanty, nearly knocking me off my feet. Before I can steady myself, another hit comes from the opposite side. The entire structure vibrates like it's being hammered by a freight train, and then they start moving us. One massive creature pushes from the left, another pushes from the right. The shanty grinds across the ice in a violent skid, whipping both of us sideways into the wall. Jake crashes into the tackle rack, sending rods clattering everywhere. I slam shoulder first into the door, pain exploding down my arm. Another shove spins the shanty sharply, making the lantern swing wildly overhead like a pendulum in a storm. The creatures push again, harder, and the entire shanty whirls in a wide, uneven arc. We're thrown across the floorboards like loose gear. A bucket smashes against the wall. The heater tips over. The wooden studs groan as the bolts drag screaming grooves into the ice beneath us. I clawed at the floor, trying to brace myself, but the shanty jerks violently again as one of the creatures rams its weight against the back wall, sending us spinning even faster. Jake tumbles into me, sobbing, "Dad, make them stop! Make them stop!" Another shove, another sickening rotation.
The shanty spins so fast it feels like we're inside a wooden centrifuge, being flung from wall to wall with no control, no footing, no escape. "Hold on," I shout, pulling Jake against me as the structure tilts dangerously to one side. "Just hold on."
They're not just trying to move us, they're trying to break us. And deep down, I know one thing. Stabbing it didn't scare the creature off. It only convinced them both to tear this wooden trap and everyone inside it completely apart. And then, just as suddenly as it started, everything stops. The shanty slides to a grinding halt on the ice. Jake and I lie tangled on the floorboards, gasping, the world still spinning even after the movement ceases. Inside, the silence is suffocating. A heavy, unnatural stillness settles over the shanty. Not a footstep, not a growl, not a breath. Just the oppressive quiet of creatures waiting for us to make the next mistake. I swallow hard and pull myself up, bracing on the wall to steady my legs. My joints feel bruised, my limbs tremble, but I force myself toward the loosened corner plank, toward the same gap where I stabbed the creature. Jake crawls after me, gripping the floorboards as if the ground itself might move again. "Dad, don't," he whispers. "What if it's right there?" "I have to see where they pushed us," I tell him quietly, trying to sound calm even as fear crawls through every vein. The gap in the wall is wider now, the screws twisted nearly free. The plank sits at an unnatural angle, creating a jagged opening to the outside. I lower myself until my face is just inches from the split, and slowly, cautiously, I look through. My stomach sinks instantly. We aren't anywhere near the center of the lake anymore. We're maybe 40 feet from the shore, the dark tree line looming like a wall of teeth. But that isn't the worst part. The ice out here is different, paler, thinner. I can see faint webbing cracks beneath us, spreading in delicate spider patterns under the weight of the shanty. They didn't just spin us. They moved us. They pushed us to where the ice is weakest. And the shanty, heavy, bolted, and cracked, is sitting directly on top of it. "They're trying to break the ice," I whisper, barely able to process it. Jake's voice quivers. "Dad, if the shanty goes through, we'll never make it." "I know, son." Before I can finish the sentence, the creature I stabbed bursts into view at the edge of the gap, flashing behind the cracked plank with a guttural snarl. I jerk back. Jake screams. But the creature doesn't pry at the wall again. Instead, it retreats. And then I hear it. A soft crunch of snow. A second crunch. Heavy, deliberate footsteps circling us again. But this time, they aren't testing the walls. They're positioning themselves. The next sound rips the breath from my lungs. Thud! The entire shanty drops an inch as something enormous lands on the roof. Jake begins to cry and clutches my palm so tightly it feels like his nails are digging through to the other side of my hand. Another impact follows. Thud! This one from the opposite side of the roof, the beams above us groaning as the creatures begin pounding in brutal rhythmic blows. Dust and frost rain from the ceiling with every strike. Their claws rake across the roof boards in long, jagged arcs, tearing deep furrows into the wood like they're trying to peel it open. They stomp, they jump, they throw their full weight down again and again, the entire shanty shaking under their coordinated assault. Each impact sends a thunderous vibration through the floor. Each stomp makes the ice beneath us crackle and hiss in warning. "They're going to break the roof!" Jake cries. "No," I whisper, horror gripping my throat. "They're going to break the ice." Outside, both creatures let out a guttural, almost triumphant howl as they leap and crash down again, the roof bowing dangerously. The shanty shifts another inch on the thinning ice, and beneath us, a deep, echoing crack splits across the lake. The roof shudders again as the creatures slam their weight onto it. Each impact feels harder than the last, as if they've realized the ice is weakening and are doubling down to finish the job. The low, echoing crack beneath us splits deeper, the sound rolling under the shanty like thunder. Another jolt rocks the roof, and another crack shoots outward in a jagged line, the vibration passing straight up through the floorboards. Jake grips me with both arms, his voice a trembling whisper. "Dad, what's happening?" I open my mouth to answer, but the lake beats me to it. I look down just as a thin line of dark water pushes itself up between two of the floorboards. At first, it's just a bead. Then the bead grows, spreads. A cold surge of lake water seeps into the shanty, snaking across the boards in an icy trail. Jake gasps, stumbling backward.
Dad, it's coming in! The water! Dad, the water's coming in! I see it, son, I say, trying not to panic. Outside, one of the creatures lets out a triumphant guttural roar, pounding the roof again like it hears and understands what we're saying to each other. The wood above us bows inward by almost an inch before snapping back, the whole shanty groaning in agony. More water bubbles up between the boards, swirling like tiny geysers. Dad, we're going to fall through, Jake whispers, squeezing his eyes shut. We're going to drown in here. No, I say, though my voice breaks. No, not if we move, not if we run. But the creatures hear us, and they answer. Both of them leap into the air and crash down onto the roof in perfect unison. Boom! The shanty slams downward an inch. Water bursts up through the floorboards in a spray of frigid droplets. A massive web of cracks splinter outward beneath us, creaking and groaning in a horrible rising chorus. Jake screams. I grab him by the coat and drag him toward the door, but another impact slams the roof. Boom! This one is so violent the entire shanty tilts sideways, skidding across the ice in a crooked slide. Water splashes across the boards as the floor dips toward one corner. The creatures above us roar with excitement, or rage, or triumph, I can't tell which, and they stomp down again with so much force the entire structure bows inward. Jake sobs into my coat. Dad, it's breaking! It's breaking! I wrap my arms around him as the shanty tilts farther. Everything, every thought, every instinct tells me this is the end. And then, bang! The sound slammed through the night like thunder ripping the sky open. A shotgun. A 12-gauge by the echo and the force of it. That unmistakable blast sliced through the pounding on the roof and froze the creatures in place. Another second of silence.
Then one of the creatures snarls, a deep, startled, angry sound, and the stomping stops. The heavy weight lifts from the roof. Jake gasps, Dad, someone's out there. Before I can answer, bang! A second shotgun blast shakes the air. This one is much closer. The creature above us lets out a screeching roar, something between pain and fury, and I hear it leap from the roof, its landing thudding heavily onto the ice outside. Another set of claws scrambles, slipping on the weakened surface as both creatures scurry away from the shanty in a frenzy of snapping ice and primal fear. A third shotgun blast tears through the night. Bang! The shots echo across the wake, bouncing off the trees, loud enough to drown out even the cracking ice. For a moment, a violent series of pops and groans echo beneath the shanty as if the lake itself was hunting us too. Jake clutches my coat. Dad, are we safe? I shake my head, listening to the hissing, spider-webbing fractures beneath the shanty. No, I say, barely breathing. We're not safe yet. We have to move, now. Outside, the shotgun fires again, closer still. Whoever's out there, they're buying us time, but the ice isn't waiting. The ice cracks again, louder this time, running straight under the shanty. The floor tilts sharply, forcing water to surge up through the gaps like the lake is trying to swallow the structure whole. We don't have time to hesitate. I kick at the weakened door with every ounce of adrenaline left in my body. The door flies outward so hard it skitters across the ice like a loose shield. Go! I shout, shoving Jake forward. We crawl out into the frigid air, the surface of the lake whining beneath us with the strained sound of ice at its breaking point. I push Jake ahead of me, both of us scrambling on hands and knees. It's safer than standing, safer than putting all our weight in one place, but the cracks keep spreading, racing around us in jagged white veins. In front of us, another shotgun blast rips through the night. The creatures snarl and retreat somewhere in the trees. We try to crawl faster, but the ice begins sagging under us, the surface bending just enough to fill my chest with cold panic. Jake slides forward, his mittens scrambling for traction. The shoreline is only 40 feet away, but it feels like a mile. Dad, hurry, hurry, he cries, his voice strangled with terror. I'm right here, I call back, even though fear is crushing the air in my lungs. We crawl, inch, and slide our way to safety. Finally, when we're close enough that the ice looks firmer, I pull us both upright and grab Jake's hand. Run, I bark, and we sprint, half running, half slipping across the last stretch of ice. Every footfall triggers another crack beneath us. The surface dips. One false step and we're done. And then we reach snow, real solid packed snow. I yank Jake up onto the bank, both of us stumbling forward and collapsing into a drift, gasping like drowning men breaking the surface. Behind us, the lake responds with one final shuddering sound. Crack! Boom! We
We look back just in time to see the shanty tearing free from the ice. It tilts at an impossible angle, suspended halfway between surface and water. Then it drops. It crashes through the ice in a violent burst of water, splintered boards, and shattered ice plates. The lake swallows it in seconds, the last of the roof disappearing into the black depths like it was never there. Jake whimpers and clutches my coat. I put an arm around him, though my own hands won't stop shaking. That's when we hear the snowmobile. The low, idling engine echoing through the trees. A headlight beam cuts through the darkness, scattering across the snow. A man climbs off, big, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a heavy one-piece snowmobile suit the color of faded charcoal. His blonde hair is long, pulled back into a loose ponytail, and his beard is just as long and just as wild. He looks like a man carved out of the Maine wilderness itself. He's holding a shotgun, still smoking from the last blast. He looks us over, two shaking, soaked, exhausted figures in the snow, and grunts. "You two are lucky I came back this way," he says, his voice gravelly with age and cold. "Damn things were circling you like wolves at a kill." He spits into the snow and shakes his head. "Everyone in town thinks I'm crazy as a loon because I talk about them. Dogmen." He says the word without hesitation, like it's a fact as plain as the trees around us. Seen 'em myself more times than I care to count. Never go through these woods without a shotgun. Not anymore. He squints at the shattered ice behind us. "They damn near drove you into the lake. If you'd stayed in that shanty 5 more seconds, you'd be under 10 feet of water." Jake starts crying, not out of fear, but from the violent crash of adrenaline finally breaking, the relief and shock hitting all at once. The man's expression softens, and he nods once, respectful and grim. "You boys listen to me," he says quietly, lowering the shotgun, but keeping it ready. "Don't bother telling anyone what actually happened out here tonight. Folks'll say you imagined it. They'll say it was trauma, cold, hypothermia, anything but the truth." He steps closer, his eyes narrowing as he looks towards the dark tree line where the creatures fled. "People will call you crazy, same way they call me crazy." He taps the shotgun with a gloved finger. "But we ain't crazy. We're alive. That's the difference." Jake leans into me, exhausted and shaking. I wrap an arm around him, feeling the weight of everything we just survived settling heavily on my shoulders. The man studies us a moment longer, then jerks his head towards the woods. "Let's get you warmed up. Those things ain't gone. They're just regrouping. And trust me," he cocks the shotgun with a sharp, echoing clack, "they don't forget faces." Later, when the sheriff asks what happened, I tell him only that the ice gave way and we barely made it out. It's the truth, just not all of it. Jake squeezes my hand under the table, his eyes still wide and haunted, and I realize we're both carrying something home tonight, something cold and ancient and watching from the dark, something we'll never be able to explain and never be able to forget.